Hi, my name is Dominic Tyrion. I am a bass player and I'm here to talk about my dear friend Mel Brown. Mel Brown is one of those guys, that one guy that you meet once in your life that changed your life for the better forever after that, that mentor. Mel Brown is that guy for me that I happen to have met and completely have changed my life. So I decided to make a video testimonial to share to everyone what this man has done for me. It all started about 15 years ago. I met this guy, phenomenal bass player. So took his input very seriously. He came to me and we chatted, introduced each other, and end up talking about shop a bit, and randomly told me that he charts all of his songs, always. I'm like, cool. At that time, I did not have a charting system. I didn't have a software for that. I barely read music. I took his advice seriously, and I told myself that if I wanted to be a serious musician, I would have to learn from him and use his method. So I started to chart my music. At first, it was a long time. I could learn an average song by ear in 5 minutes and play at the gig. Charting, it would take me 2 or 3 hours per song because I didn't know what I was doing. But he told me to go at it and to keep getting better at it. And so I did. Now, as a result from that, I never have to learn a song twice. And every time I go to a gig, today I've got thousands of songs that I've charted from the past 10, 15 years that I can just play right there on the gig. So it makes my work as a musician extremely more productive this way. So nevertheless, I got better at this, and now I'm using his system to work as a professional musician. I put some post on Facebook and of my gigs, and he saw that I had chart and it was correctly labeled, and he thought to himself that, hey man, this guy is serious, he wants to do well. Maybe it would be worth my time if I sit down with him and share with him things that he needs to be doing in order to become successful. So we sat down, we went to coffee and sat down in a restaurant, and he starts sharing to me what has changed my life completely. At first, he says, Dominic, you need to have a website with 60 songs. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. It has to be correctly labeled. It needs to be all the song of the music style that you wish to advertise. It has to have a bio. You have to have testimonial from people that you've worked with, not so much people writing a testimonial, but actually making a video of someone spending their time explaining what their experience was working for me. He was also made aware that before I started to becoming a musician, that I was a professional BMX racer. That's what I did for a living. And back in the 2000 era, I did quite well. And he said that story of me as a BMX racer cannot be left alone, that I needed to make a movie about it. Now, think about this. I've never made a movie before. I've never made video before. Those are all things that I had to learn as I went along with this project, right? And so then I thought to myself, how making a movie about an old BMX career that dates 20 years back will help my life today. Now there's something that you need to understand here. Making all these videos, making them well, making all the bios, setting up the website, creating the content to make a movie about my BMX career. I mean, that took me about a year and a half to do. I mean, working on this every single day. I mean, just now that I think about it, just a movie Took me about 6 months, and then the subtitle, figuring out a way to get the content. I mean, those were barely documented back 20 years ago. Nobody was really putting their result on YouTube. I mean, I really had to dig back to finding some connection I had in friends back when I was doing that, calling some old friends, see if they're still somewhere around that sport. Before I even started, I knew that it would take me about a year. So before I got started, I had to have a conversation with my wife as far as saying, okay, this is what my friend Mel recommended me to do. And in order for me to do that, I am gonna have to let go of a lot of things, and I'm gonna have to sit down and do the work. It's gonna take a long time, and I cannot be distracted with playing a bunch of gigs for everybody. Like, I need to sit down and do this job, or else that's gonna be an ongoing process that will never end. So luckily for me, I started to do this during the COVID era, but nevertheless, it was still a huge job. And because that job took a long time, I was not taking many gigs, so my income, I didn't really have an income. So I basically asked my wife if it was okay for her to support me as I build this thing that Mel wants me to build. And her answer, my wife, Tracy, her answer was that it's very important to her that I succeed over the things I really wanted to do. And so since she knew that I trusted Mel with its experience, she decided to trust Mel also, and 100% supporting me into what is it that I was about to do. So I started to build a website. About a year and a half later, everything is done. The website looks great. Everything is labeled. So I launched the website with everything in it. I would say that immediately people started to take my musicianship a lot more serious than it was before. They would see my website and think for themselves, wow, this guy is serious. I've heard comments as, wow, he's top notch. Check out his website, so on and so on. So I immediately took that status. Nothing has changed in my bass playing, but I automatically took that status of one of those cats that are now serious, right? So people as musicians started to respect me a lot more than they did before. Not only that, but I saved a heck of a lot of time with audition. They would say, hey man, come sit in with us. Well, the website bypasses all of that. They are listening to the song, they see what I can do, they read about what I did, they listen to my video testimonial, people I worked with before, and they just call me. It's like, man, you're the guy. Just show up and let's do this. So that was quite nice. So the music itself has benefit right away from the website. But at my biggest surprise, remember when I told you that how would making a movie about my BMX career would help my music, right? And so soon as the website launched, people started to watch the movie. They had no idea that I was a professional BMX racer, but nevertheless, I've received a call from some writer in Quebec, Canada that said, man, your movie is awesome. Would you be able to train me? So then I thought to myself, well, the people I coached before I was BMX back 20 years ago was people that was living close to me and that I was able to be with them on a one-on-one basis. But for people from Quebec or even some people from France calling me and say, would you be able to train me? At the time, the answer is no. But now I thought to myself, like, well, I already did the whole website with a bunch of videos of me playing music. I was not that far off from being able to launch a school, a training program to be able to train BMX racer from all over the world if I wanted to. I just had to put on the work to. So then again, I had another conversation with my wife. I said, hey, look, I know that you've been supporting me for a year and a half for the website, but because of this website, another door opened that I have now the opportunity and the ability now to create a BMX school so that I can train everybody all over the world that wish to be trained by me. And not only that, but it will also be able to be a form of active income, meaning people could sign up, I could train them, and if I do all the training up front, then I can be sleeping and waking up the next morning with a paycheck. So I've never really had that experience before. Up until now, all I've ever did is, in order for me to make $1, I had to go somewhere to make the dollar and come back in exchange of my time. So either play a gig, it was always time exchange money. So that, it's a big life change for me. And that has happened because of the movie that Mel told me to make. So my wife was like, well, that sounds great. So what about it? I was like, well, maybe I'll need another year to do that. So let's prolong that. Could you continue to support me so that I can build another section of my website, which would be the training school of the BMX, right? So I don't know how I pulled that off. I must have the gift of gab, but convinced my wife to do it. And she's like, you know what? It's fun to watch what you're doing actually, and I want to support you. What you're building with Mel, it's great, and let's do it. So all right, so I have built a BMX school, and Mel at some point at the beginning told me that you needed to build some sort of income, residual income, because otherwise you will always get stuck playing gigs over and over and over. Well, the BMX thing, the movie has unlatched that in a way, right? So I started to build this BMX school. I mean, I've made over 300 videos of every technique that exists into BMX racing. I have broke it all down to say how to do it. So it's a little clinic section, broke down how they need to do it. I build a scorecard in a way for me to test my rider. Once my riders are tested, it kind of put them into a category of levels. And each level has hundreds of blocks. I call my blocks weeks. Each week has like 9 pages on the PDF of everything that they need to do for that week. Blocks. I've got about hundreds of blocks per category. And then they are sending me the race schedule. And then based on the race schedule, I know how to build their blocks. So for that individual, they're gonna do block 2, 6. They don't follow each other, but they are placed strategically in a way where that athlete start at a specific point and end up showing up at that race that they wanna do perfectly trained. So what my point is to say that all the work has been done up front. Now that I have a new client, they sent me the races, I test them out. It takes me about 1 hour of my work to build their year. Then I send all the work by month, and it auto sends itself for that rider for the entire year, and I never have to do a thing. And they are paying me every single month, time 1 client, 2, 3, 10, 20, 30, all over the world. I do not need to be there. I do not need to actually talk to the client. I am just sitting there, sending everything that I've built to them. And now I am getting income while doing absolutely nothing. Everything has been done up front. I still reach out to my client, because I want to have that personal touch with them, but I do it because I want to. I don't do it because I have to and then be loaded with work. None of that is happening now. So now check this out. This is how this has helped in my music. Now I don't need anymore to go do that dive bar, $100 gig from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. with a bunch of drunk musicians anymore so that I can pay my bills the next day. I don't need to do that anymore. So as a result, I end up taking only the gig I want to gig. Instead of taking that bar that I don't want to go to, I'm going to go check out my friend Mel or anybody else that I really look up to. As a result from that, I started to introduce myself to other musicians that are a much higher level. So now my network as a musician has changed completely. Instead of getting called by these people that used to call me 10 years ago, now I'm getting called by a really good people. Hey Dom, are you available for a gig? Oh my gosh, I always wanted to play with that drummer. I always wanted to play with this guitar player, man. This band is fantastic. Yes, I am available. And then I go do that gig. Now that gig generated more work like that, and now I am much more happier as a musician and more successful as a musician because I don't depend on all these gigs. You see, when I first started playing music, I created my database, my people calling me. I ended up working with 15 bands that started to call me. So on and on and on. These bands were not very serious, but they put food on my table. And I got stuck doing these things over and over. And I looked to myself, well, I don't want to play with these people. I'm not going to name any name, right? But I don't want to play with these people. But man, they were putting like 50% of my income because they were calling me all the time. So I was like, I can't afford to leave them. And then same thing with this guy, and then something with that church gig, and then so on and so on and so on. So I was always stuck doing the same thing over and over and over. And every time that something really cool would happen in town that I wanted to be there, I wanted to introduce myself, well, I was busy making that $100 gig. So I was just stuck with that. My BMX racing that had started because I launched that movie that Mel told me to do in the first place has relieved me from doing that entirely. Now I looked at the musician, I go support other group, and I was able to let go of all the other band that I used to do and now start fresh, right? So you want to talk about a life change? Now, because my son watched the movie, my son says, Dad, I want to be a world champ. I want you to train me too. I want to do this. At first, I was skeptical. I thought he just wanted to do it and quit like most of people do. But he stuck to it. He trained, he wants to do it. And now he's racing nationally and there's no turning back. He's going to make it. Like, I don't know if he's going to be the world champion, but I can promise you guys that he's going to have the skill to be able to compete to get that title. It's incredible. So now he's racing. Now, because he's racing, now I started to race again in my category 41, 45 expert. So now the point of this is like him and I now are traveling all across the United States. I'm driving my car with my son on races. As I drive my car, I feel pretty guilty that I'm 43 years old. I should be having a job, I should be working. But yet I am driving across the world with my son, racing bikes. But as I drive along, boom, a payment from TTP, my training company now, Terrian Training Program, comes in. And then another thing, so I'm no longer stuck with a job. I can just do all the things I want to do. And Mel has done that for me. So when I say I do the things that I want to do, it does not mean only music. It means everything, literally. And I still cannot wrap my mind around that this is the life I'm living now. And all that started because Mel gave me his time to teach me all these things. I mean, think about this. This guy has took his free time to sit for hours. I mean, we would go to this coffee shop meeting around noon. We would leave at 5. We were there all day chatting about everything, answering all my questions, either musically, technically, or the website, or the future of what am I going to do with this, or what's going to be like, or whatever, chatting about everything. I mean, he took his time so that I could be successful. Now think about this for a second. I did not pay him $1. I mean, I offered to pay his meal, but that's it. I mean, who would do that? I cannot think of anyone else in town that would just give their free time to just help someone just for the sake of seeing them become successful. Mel has done that for me. And that has more value to me that words can never come to. So I want to say that to you, Mel, for as much as word worth something. I want to say that from the bottom of my heart, thank you for changing my life, but not only my life, but my entire family. Thank you for what you've done for my son, Leo, because without what you've taught me, I could not give my son his career that he would want. Thank you for now the lifestyle that I have with my wife. Again, it has changed not just me, but everything around me as well. I don't know what to say, but thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.